The sun was setting, painting the sky in orange and gold, when Nora sat outside her mother's house. The air smelled of fresh food and laughter floated in from the neighbors. It was just 1 week to her wedding. Nora's heart beat fast. She was excited, but also a little afraid. Marriage was a big step, and she wondered if she was truly ready. Her hands trembled as she adjusted her wrapper, waiting for Mama to call her inside. As you watch, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Nora stepped out slowly, her face calm and wise. She looked at her daughter and smiled. "Nora," she said, "come and sit with me." Nora obeyed and sat on the wooden bench beside her mother. Mama held her daughter's hands, squeezed them gently, and took a deep breath. It was time to talk, mother to daughter, woman to woman. Nora's eyes shone with curiosity. She knew Mama's words tonight would be important. "My child," Mama began, "marriage is sweet, but it also has its challenges. You must learn to communicate with your husband. Don't keep things locked in your heart. If something bothers you, speak it out with respect. Let him know your thoughts, your needs, your feelings. That way, you will build a bond that is stronger than gold." Nora nodded, listening like a thirsty plant drinking water. Mama continued, "But it is not only about talking. You must also listen. When your husband speaks, give him your full ear. Look into his eyes. Let him feel that his words matter. A man who feels heard will love you deeper." Nora smiled softly, imagining her husband to be, and how she would put Mama's advice into practice. The evening grew darker, but Mama's words shone brighter than the moon. "Show appreciation, my daughter," she said. "When he does something good, even small, say thank you. Compliment him. Make him feel valued. That is how love grows." Nora leaned her head on Mama's shoulder, and in that moment, she felt stronger, ready to begin her new life. The next evening, the house was quiet. Nora's siblings had gone to bed, and the moon was high in the sky. Mama Nora called her again. "Sit here, my daughter," she said, patting the mat on the floor. Nora sat down quickly, her heart beating. She knew Mama still had more to say. "My child," Mama began softly, "marriage is not only about love and laughter. It is also about patience and wisdom. There will be days you and your husband disagree. On such days, remember this: choose your battles wisely. Not every argument is worth fighting. Sometimes silence is stronger than words." Nora nodded slowly, her eyes fixed on Mama's face. She could almost see her future, and she wanted to be ready. Mama leaned closer and whispered, "You must also care for yourself. Don't lose yourself because of marriage. Eat well, rest well, dress well, and pray. A happy woman makes a happy home. If you are weak, you cannot give your best to your husband or your children." Nora felt the weight of those words. She promised herself never to forget. And about boundaries, listen well. From the start, tell your husband what you can accept and what you cannot. Let him also share his boundaries. Respect them. Don't cross them. A marriage where boundaries are clear is like a house built on strong rock. Nora swallowed hard, realizing how deep her mother's wisdom was. And about in-laws, treat them with respect, even when they test you. Remember, you are not just marrying your husband, but entering a family. Be wise, be gentle, and show love. But don't forget to protect your peace." Nora blinked back tears. She hugged her mother tightly. In that hug, she felt courage rising in her chest. The village was buzzing with excitement. Women were pounding yam, children were running around, and men were setting up chairs under big canopies. Drums echoed from the square, and songs of joy filled the air. Nora stood at her window, watching. Her heart raced faster than the drums. Tomorrow, she would no longer be called just Nora. Tomorrow, she would become a wife. Inside, Mama Nora was busy tying bundles of wrappers and packing gifts for the in-laws. She paused and looked at her daughter. "Nora, come here," she called gently. Nora walked over, her step slow, like a child about to receive a serious lesson. Mama placed her hands on Nora's shoulders. "Are you ready?" she asked. Nora smiled weakly and whispered, "I think so, Mama, but I am afraid too." Mama chuckled softly, then grew serious. "Fear is normal, my child. But remember, love is stronger than fear. When you step into your husband's house, step in with courage. Greet everyone with respect, smile even when you are tired, and keep your head high. The first impression you give will follow you forever." Nora nodded, her chest tight with mixed feelings. "You must learn to pray for your home," she said. "Prayer is like oil in a lamp. Without it, the light will go out. Every morning, call your husband's name in prayer. Every night, cover your home with blessings. That is how a house stands firm, even when storms come." Nora felt tears rising in her eyes. She suddenly understood how heavy the crown of marriage could be. The sound of talking and laughter from the neighbors faded in Nora's ears. All she could hear was her mother's steady voice, like the voice of wisdom itself. In that moment, she decided, no matter what happened, she would remember her mother's words. She would carry them like treasure into her new life. And tomorrow, she would begin that journey. The morning sun rose bright and bold, shining on the village like a golden crown. From every corner came the sound of drums, laughter, and songs. Women were dancing, men were shouting in joy, and children were chasing each other with excitement. It was Nora's wedding day, and the whole village had come alive. Inside the bridal room, Nora sat still while her friends tied her galley. Her heart was beating so loud she thought everyone could hear it. "You look beautiful," one friend whispered, but Nora barely smiled. She was nervous, and her palms were sweaty. Today she would leave her father's house and step into her husband's home. She took a deep breath and whispered to herself, "Mama's words, remember Mama's words." Mama Nora entered the room, dressed in her best lace wrapper. She looked at her daughter and her eyes shone with pride and tears. "Nora, my jewel," she said softly, "stand tall. This is your day. Don't let fear steal it from you." Nora hugged her tightly, and for a moment, mother and daughter clung to each other as if they never wanted to let go. The other women wiped their eyes, touched by the sight. The time came. Nora walked out, her wrapper sparkling, her beads jingling. The crowd cheered and ululated. Drums thundered. Her husband-to-be stood waiting, looking strong and proud in his agbada. Their eyes met, and for the first time that morning, Nora smiled. She saw love in his gaze, and it gave her strength. The ceremony began, filled with dancing, singing, and blessings. Elders prayed, women spread money, and the air was sweet with food and joy. Nora knelt before her husband, and he lifted her up gently. Together, they were declared husband and wife. The crowd roared in celebration, and Mama Nora, watching from the corner, whispered a prayer, "May my daughter's home never know shame, may her joy overflow." The sun had gone down, and the wedding celebration was over. The drums had grown silent, the guests had left, and only the faint smell of food lingered in the air. Nora sat quietly in the car beside her husband, her hands clasped together. She was leaving everything behind, her mother, her father's house, the familiar laughter of her siblings. Now, she was stepping into a new world. When they arrived at her husband's compound, the compound was still alive with noise. Some relatives had stayed behind, waiting to see the new bride. Women clapped, children ran around, and elders sat with stern faces, observing. Nora's heart thumped. Mama's words echoed in her mind, "Treat them with respect, even when they test you." As she stepped out, some of the women rushed to greet her warmly, but others only stared. One aunt whispered loudly, "Let us see if this city girl can truly make a good wife." Nora's ears burned, but she bent down respectfully to greet them. Her husband smiled proudly, but Nora could feel the eyes of her new family weighing heavy on her. Later that night, after everyone had eaten and the compound grew quiet, Nora sat in her new room, her mind spinning. She remembered how Mama had told her to choose her battles wisely. Not every word deserves a reply, Mama had said. She now understood why. The whispers from earlier still echoed in her head, but she chose silence and prayer. Her husband sat beside her and held her hand. "You did well today," he whispered. "Don't mind what anyone says. I know you will be a good wife." Nora's heart softened, and she felt peace wash over her. For the first time since the wedding began, she felt at home in her new life. She laid her head on his shoulder and thought, this is only the beginning. The first week in her new home felt like a test. Nora woke early each morning to sweep the compound, greet her in-laws, and prepare food with the other women. Some smiled at her, but others watched closely, as if waiting for her to make a mistake. Still, she remembered Mama's words, respect them, but protect your peace. So she carried herself with grace. When the house grew quiet, Nora and her husband would sit together. Sometimes they laughed about little things, sometimes they spoke about their future. And sometimes they sat in silence, enjoying each other's company. Nora remembered Mama's advice, spend quality time, even if it's just a few minutes. That small ritual gave her strength to face the next day, but one afternoon, tension rose. One of her husband's aunts complained loudly that Nora had not cooked the soup the right way. Her husband tried to defend her, but the aunt continued grumbling. Nora wanted to cry, but she held her tongue. Later, she whispered to her husband, "I want to learn your family's way of cooking. Teach me." He smiled and kissed her forehead. That night, they cooked together, laughing in the kitchen like two children. Slowly, the walls began to break. Nora started showing small kindness to everyone. She fetched water for the old uncle, played with the children, and offered food with a smile. Even the aunt who had scolded her softened a little. It was not easy, but Nora was patient. She understood that building trust takes time, just as Mama had said. One evening, as she sat under the moonlight, Nora whispered to herself, "Marriage is not a bed of roses, but it can be a garden if I water it daily." She felt proud of the woman she was becoming. Little by little, she was learning the rhythm of marriage, balancing love, respect, and self-care. Weeks passed, and Nora had begun to feel more at home. She laughed more with her husband, worked harder in the house, and even started earning respect from her in-laws. But then came the day of her first real test. One evening, her husband returned late from a meeting with friends. He was tired and quiet, and when Nora asked if he had eaten, he replied sharply, "I'm fine, don't bother me." The words stung. Nora felt hurt, but she remembered Mama's teaching, communicate openly, but with respect. She swallowed her tears and decided to speak when the time was right. The next morning, she woke early and cooked his favorite meal. When he sat down to eat, she looked at him and said softly, "My love, yesterday when you spoke to me, I felt sad. I want us to always talk with kindness, even when we are tired. You are my husband, and your words matter to me." Her voice shook, but she kept her eyes steady. Her husband paused, spoon halfway to his mouth. He sighed deeply and put the spoon down. "I'm sorry, Nora," he said. "I was tired, but that was no excuse. Thank you for telling me how you felt instead of keeping silent." He held her hand across the table, and she felt her heart melt. Mama's advice had worked. Open communication had healed the wound before it grew. As they sat under the stars, her husband said, "You are not only my wife, you are my partner. Thank you for being patient with me." Nora smiled, knowing that marriage would not always be easy. But she was ready. Each test was making their love stronger, just as iron is made stronger in fire. Months rolled by, and the joy of marriage blossomed in Nora's heart. She and her husband laughed together, shared secrets, and supported each other through long days. But soon, whispers began to rise around her. Some in-laws started asking questions. When will we hear the cry of a baby? One aunt said with a smirk. Another added, marriage is not sweet until children fill the compound. At first, Nora smiled politely and stayed quiet, just as Mama had taught her. But as the days passed, the whispers grew louder. Some women began watching her belly, as if expecting to see signs. It weighed on Nora's heart like a heavy stone. At night, when she lay beside her husband, her eyes filled with tears. What if something is wrong with me? She whispered. Her husband held her tightly. Don't say that, Nora. Our time will come. I will wait. In her heart, she prayed harder than ever before, asking God to bless their union with fruit, and then, just when the pressure felt unbearable, a quiet miracle happened. Nora missed her monthly flow. Days passed, and the signs became clear. Her heart raced with joy and fear. She whispered to her husband, I think I am with child. His eyes lit up, and he hugged her so tightly she could hardly breathe. At last, hope had bloomed in their home. The news spread quickly. Nora was with child. The compound filled with songs, laughter, and clapping. Women danced, men raised their voices in praise, and even the stern aunt who had once doubted her smiled with pride. For the first time, Nora felt the full warmth of acceptance from her in-laws. Her heart soared, but the true surprise came months later. At her checkup, the midwife pressed her hands gently on Nora's stomach and laughed. My daughter, she said, you are not carrying one baby. You are carrying two. Nora's eyes widened. Twins, she gasped. The room spun with joy and fear. She thought of Mama's words, some blessings come with extra responsibility. Truly, this was one of them. When she told her husband, he shouted in excitement, lifting her high in his arms. Twins! Double joy, he cried. Neighbors came to celebrate, clapping and singing. Gifts began to pour in, and people whispered, Nora is truly blessed. Her womb carries greatness. But with the joy came new challenges. Nora's body grew heavier than she expected. She struggled to walk, to sleep, even to eat. Some nights, she wept quietly, whispering, Lord, give me strength. Her husband, remembering Mama's advice too, never left her side. He rubbed her back, fetched her water, and spoke kind words when she felt weak. We are in this together, he told her. You are not alone. His love was like a shelter in the storm. Alone. His love was like a shelter in the storm, and then came the day of delivery. The house trembled with prayers, songs, and anxious footsteps. After hours of labor, 2 cries pierced the night, first one, then another. 2 healthy babies, wrapped in cloth, placed gently in Nora's arms. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she whispered, Thank you, Lord. It was the beginning of a new chapter, not just for her marriage, but for her life. And the compound was alive with joy. The sound of babies crying, women singing lullabies, and men laughing around the fire made the air sweet. Nora sat on a mat under the shade of a mango tree, rocking her twins gently. Their tiny faces glowed like the morning sun. She felt her heart swell with pride and gratitude. This was her new life, full, blessed, and beautiful. Mama Nora arrived with a basket of gifts on her head. Her face glowed with tears and smiles as she bent down to hold her grandchildren. All double blessings, she whispered, kissing their foreheads. Nora, my child, you have done well. You listened to my words, and today, look at your reward. Nora's eyes filled with tears. She hugged her mother tightly, feeling once again like a little girl in safe arms. The whole family gathered to celebrate. Drums beat, women danced, and children ran around in excitement. Even the once critical relatives now praised Nora. She is strong, they said. She is wise. She is a good wife. Nora sat quietly, remembering the long nights of doubt, the whispers of shame, and the fears that had once clouded her heart. Now those days felt far away, replaced by songs of victory. That evening, her husband sat beside her. He watched her nurse their twins and whispered, "Thank you, Nora. You have made this house a home. You are my joy, my blessing." She smiled, remembering Mama's words about love, respect, and communication. Truly, she had seen them come alive in her own life. Hi, Mama gathered everyone and prayed. May this home never lack peace. May these children grow in wisdom and strength. May Nora and her husband walk in love all their days. The family echoed amen, and laughter filled the night. Nora looked at her twins, then at her husband, then at Mama. Her heart whispered softly, "This is the life I prayed for. This is love, this is home." Now it's your turn. What advice would you give to Nora or to anyone about to get married? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's learn from each other. Don't just watch, share your wisdom. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel African Folktales by Irene for more stories.